Welcome back to this week's episode of Made. So, I like to think of myself as a pretty practical person, pretty straightforward, rational thinker. I see the writing on the wall. I call it how I see it. I'm not a doomer. I'm not a doomsday type person. So when I say things that sound dark and or ominous, just understand that I believe that they're coming from a place of practicality and just rational thinking. So when I say things like AI is 1000% coming for your job, I'm saying that from what I believe to be the most rational standpoint possible, right? Think about it. Businesses, they have one job. It is to earn money, right? And so one of the ways that you earn money is by cutting costs. And you cut costs by sometimes having to cut people, lay people off. And so anytime I see like a press release from a company or a CEO saying, oh, we're not trying to eliminate jobs, we're trying to create AI coworkers, that is 100% false. Like that's not the case. Like maybe right now they're trying to create coworkers, but they're just testing the waters. They're trying to see how much they can get these AI coworkers to do while at the same time freezing hiring and then eventually getting rid of the people who are training those AI colleagues, right? A human employee comes at a cost. So we're talking like between $50,000 to $100,000 a year. That's just their compensation. We haven't included their medical insurance, vision insurance, like all these extra costs that come with having a human employee. And then on top of that, you have to deal with human tendencies, right? The tendency to call out sick, the tendency to come in and have a really bad day and then have that affect your productivity. You have all these things now that humans do that just put AI in a huge limelight, right? Like AI doesn't get tired. AI can work 100 times, like it can work 24/7. And so you mean to tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, that you want to hire a human with all that cost and potential headache? I don't think so. So anytime you hear a company talking about they're not trying to fire employees, don't believe it. That is not the case. And today we're going to be looking at 3 different articles that I found that kind of illustrate what's happening in the job market currently, and how it's affecting people in the now and how we can expect AI infiltrating workforce to affect people in the future. All right, so this first story comes from New York Times and it reads, "Goodbye $165,000 tech jobs. Student coders seek work at Chipotle." And I will say I did read this article and they are not lying. It's actually a little darker than that, as we'll get to in a moment. But what I like about this article is that they interviewed people who have just graduated in the last few years with computer science degrees who have been having a really, really hard time getting into the tech industry, largely in part due to AI. If you don't know this by now, AI can do the job of a junior developer at this point. And so a lot of companies have just frozen their hiring because now you've got AI who can do the job of of a junior developer. But then you've got people who are in the senior levels who are willing to step down and work for less so that they don't lose their jobs to AI, which really makes for a super tough and competitive market as it relates to getting into tech. And so the sentiment that all the people in this article shared is that they were kind of promised a dream, right? We've all heard it for the last few decades that if you get a job in tech, you're going to be good. You're going to make a lot of money. I've got friends who've made so much money because they've got computer science degrees, they're programmers. It's just, we all know that to be the case. And so I can't fault these younger folks for kind of taking the bait and getting those degrees, because that's all we've been hearing for the last few years. And so a lot of them expressed feeling a little let down or like they had the carpet pulled from under them. And again, it's just, I don't think it was malicious. I think technology is just advancing at such a pace that we can't really keep up. And so the promises of yesterday don't pertain to today, and they're not going to pertain to tomorrow either. So getting into this article here, we have Anya, who she said that she's been applying for the last year, and the only job that has called her back is Chipotle, right? An entire year's worth of applying, and the only person that calls you back is Chipotle. There's a dude named Zach Zach graduated in 2023, and he said that in the last few years, so I think it's 2 years, he's put in 5,700 applications. Think about that for a second. Graduated in 2023. Since then, he's put in over 5,700 applications. Of that, 13 of those have resulted in an interview, and then 0 of them have resulted in a job. So he's still unemployed. He's living at home with his parents, and he actually got rejected when he applied to McDonald's because he was trying to make ends meet because he didn't have enough experience, which I find kind of funny. Not like laughing at his situation, but just funny that whole, how do you get experience if you don't have experience? But here you have an incredibly educated person who can't even get a job at McDonald's, right? That's how competitive this job market is. They interviewed one other person who says that she put in like 200 applications in government, nonprofits, anything in the tech industry. She's had absolutely no luck. And one thing I found interesting is that a lot of these people now, like who are applying, they're using AI to help them apply. So they've got these different AI resume companies that I think will alter your resume to kind of fit the demand of the job or something of that nature. And so I think that's how people are able to apply so frequently and so fast and so often. But then on the flip side, now you've got these corporations that are using AI to just either filter, discard, or approve whoever they want. So there's not even a human review happening at this point. So everything is AI, right? The applications and then the HR process is all AI. And so a lot of them describe this feeling of applying as like kind of cutthroat, every man for themselves, and people are going to great lengths to get employment and it is not working. And I think that it's safe to say that AI is kind of the culprit here. Again, when you've got an AI who can do all the work of a junior developer, why would you hire someone for all that money and all that potential headache when you have a 24/7 AI agent that can just do it for you? All right. And so our next story is a little bit more cutthroat. So we've got out of Toronto, a startup by the name BenchSci, and they have recently cut 23% of their jobs explicitly because of AI. Like they didn't even try to hide it. They literally said, we do not need you anymore. I'm sorry, goodbye. And of course, surprise, surprise, these were all software engineers. So they let go of 125 software engineers. 100 of those were done in the last couple of weeks. So things are moving very quickly. And again, they did that because of AI. And what I found interesting about this company is that they were actually very financially healthy, right? We see most companies cutting because they're losing money or they're not profitable. These folks were actually making money. They just had no need for human employees anymore. And when the CEO was asked, he basically said that it's the competition. It's the fear that's driving them to make these cuts because you've got their competition who's building similar companies or offering similar services, and they're doing it with fewer employees and a lot less funding, all thanks to generative AI. So I think this is another just scary look at what's coming down the pipeline, what we have to look forward to in the future. And I don't mean that in a positive way. Like, I think, again, this is like we need to start bracing ourselves for some pretty radical changes. And, you know, if you are one of those people that has a job in tech and you feel like, you know, you're going to be set for the next decade or more, I encourage you to look elsewhere because what we're seeing now, I think, is just an indicator of what we are going to be seeing in the future. All right, and then our final story comes out of Australia from the JSA, which is the Jobs and Skills Australia report, basically saying that all doomsday predictions are overblown, but that most occupations will be augmented by artificial intelligence. So they're saying that jobs are not going to be taken away by AI, they're going to be enhanced by AI. This is one of those things that I'm just like, I can't get behind this. There's just not going to be enough work for people when we have all these AI softwares and tools that can do all the things that humans do. But let's get into what they're talking about here. So basically, they gave a full comprehensive breakdown as to what jobs are at risk, as well as what jobs they think are safe. So jobs that they think that are at risk are anything that's like clerical or administrative, or anything that is routine and analytical. So examples that they gave were office clerks and receptionists who basically where they're just digital assistants that automate scheduling and filing and just basic front desk duties. Bookkeepers with accounting softwares. I already know that that's getting taken over because I have now seen so many different AI bookkeeping softwares in a matter of a month or two that it's kind of ridiculous. Marketing and communication roles where AI tools generate content, manage campaigns, and analyze audience data. Business analysts and programmers where AI can perform large-scale data analysis and generate code super fast. Basically, these are all the jobs that they have flagged as the highest probability at being entirely eliminated by 2050, right? Meaning fewer opportunities for growth in these industries. And then they talk about jobs that they think are likely to grow and or stay secure against AI. So jobs including physical work, face-to-face service, and things that are in unpredictable environments. Those are the jobs that they say are going to be the most resilient. So those things include cleaning, construction, hospitality, public administration and safety, and they even put down mining on here, right? I know that I've talked about this in my circles, and I'm sure you guys have too, where we jokingly say, oh, I guess we should go back to blue collar work or go back to being plumbers and electricians. I think that's exactly what they're saying here, and I think it's true. Personally, I know AI is kind of crazy and is doing some crazy things. My brain right now just can't see an AI plumber coming to my house to fix a pipe. I just can't see that. Like, I don't even think that I would want that. Like, I derive pleasure talking to the plumber or the electrician and building that rapport. If a robot could do it, like, sure, I would try it, but I don't think that that's a replaceable thing. Not to mention, these people make a ton of money. Like, don't sleep on the electricians, the landscapers, all the blue collar stuff. They're making bank, and I don't think that their jobs are ever going to be at risk. And that is exactly what the JSA report thinks as well. And then they kind of give this like employment outlook. They talk about what the next couple of decades are going to look like. So they say that by the 2030s, that's going to bring slower job growth as AI adoption accelerates, leading to fewer new openings, especially in those vulnerable sectors. And then they say that by the 2040s, growth is expected to rebound as AI integration stabilizes and new industries emerge around digital technologies, sustainability, and AI oversight. They also estimate that almost half of today's workers are in jobs that AI is unlikely to fully replace. So they say that these jobs are considered safe from AI, but the work will change. Employees will need to use AI as a part of their jobs rather than compete with them. Whew, okay, that was a lot to take in. So I was reading that article and I found myself nodding in agreement with a lot of it. I will say I do think that that article leans more on the optimistic side. I just can't imagine what 2050 is going to look like. I can't imagine a world where people are having jobs in 2050. But if you take everything that that article said with truth, then basically by 2050, we should have new technologies and therefore new industries and therefore new opportunities. So yes, I do think we're going to hit a dip, and then eventually we will see a rebound like that article said. I think, though, for our generation, the people who are losing their jobs now is going to be who can survive until 2050, because I genuinely think that we're going to have a dip. And dip, I mean a dark period where people will lose their jobs and people will not have a place that they can go to for work. I think that there is going to be a sucky period of time before we rebound. And so it's our generation that I kind of worry about in terms of their ability to stabilize and find some sort of stability while we're going through this massive economic and societal change. There's a lot to be discovered, and I guess we're all kind of just here for the ride. But that is all I got for you in this episode of Made. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast listening app. I would really appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.